When you grow old, don't remarry if you don't know this truth. Hey there, my friend. I want you to take a moment and imagine something with me. Picture yourself, years down the road, when the world feels a little quieter, a little slower, and maybe a little more unpredictable. You've seen so much, lived so much, and yet there's this nagging question that lingers. Should I remarry? Should I take that step again? Or am I just seeking something I might not truly need? Here's the truth. The idea of love and companionship doesn't fade with age. In fact, for many of us, it can grow stronger, deeper, and more meaningful, but not in the way you might think. So, before you even think about walking down that aisle again, especially if you're older and wiser, I need to tell you something crucial. Something most people aren't talking about. Something that can completely change how you view relationships in your golden years. In this video, I'm not here to tell you, don't remarry, or to push you into a life of solitude. Absolutely not. What I want to share with you are the hidden truths, the emotional realities, and the personal reflections that most people don't even think about when considering remarriage in older age. Because when you grow older, it's not about love for the sake of love anymore. It's about what really brings fulfillment. It's about avoiding the mistakes that many make, feeling pressured by society, or clinging to an idea of love that doesn't truly nourish your soul. And you deserve to know these truths before you make a life-changing decision. So stick with me. Let's dive into why. When you grow old, you need to think carefully before remarrying, because there's something much more important you might be missing out on. Something far beyond the idea of a second chance at love. It's about rediscovering yourself and finding true happiness, without depending on someone else to fill that void. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Wisdom of Age. As we get older, something beautiful happens, something that's not always recognized or valued by society. We begin to understand life in ways we never could when we were younger. We've been through the highs and lows, the joys and heartbreaks, and with every passing year, we collect lessons. These lessons become our wisdom, and with wisdom comes a deeper understanding of what truly matters. When we're young, we think we need to chase after the rush of excitement, the whirlwind romance, and the sparks that make our hearts race. But as time goes by, we start to realize that those things, though wonderful, aren't what bring lasting peace. What really matters in the later years of life is finding something more steady, more grounding, a kind of love that isn't based on the thrills of newness or the need to fill an empty space. Now, I know many of us grow older with the thought that companionship is something we still need, and for sure, the desire for someone to share our days with is natural. But here's the truth that many don't often talk about. The relationship we have with ourselves becomes the most important one. In our youth, we often think about relationships as a way to complete ourselves. But as we grow, we realize that we are whole. We have everything we need within us, our memories, our experiences, our lessons. And that's why, as we age, we need to ask ourselves, what kind of relationship am I really looking for? Is it truly about finding someone to complete me? Or is it about sharing my life with someone who complements who I already am? You see, when you grow old, you no longer have the same emotional needs as before. You're not seeking out someone to fulfill your every emotional craving. Instead, you're looking for someone who brings peace, joy, and shared wisdom. Someone who understands you not through the lens of passion, but through the comfort of companionship. And that's a much harder thing to find than romance. The desire for companionship can often be mistaken for the need for someone to fix you, to fill the spaces where loneliness lingers. But here's the kicker. Loneliness is not a gap that can be filled by just any person. It's something we have to face and understand within ourselves first. I've seen it in the lives of those around me. There are people who, after a loss, rush into new relationships, thinking that a second marriage will bring back the joy they once had. But the truth is, they end up carrying the emotional baggage of the past into something new, something that was never really meant to heal them. They bring the unresolved grief, the fear of being alone, and the old wounds into a new relationship, expecting them to magically disappear. And guess what? They don't. In fact, it's often in solitude that we find the most healing. It's in those quiet moments of reflection, of reconnecting with ourselves, that we come to understand what we truly need. So, before you rush into remarriage, take a moment to ask, what is it I'm really looking for? A new partner, or just a sense of peace and wholeness? Chapter 2. The Hidden Realities of Remarriage. When we think of remarriage in our later years, we often romanticize it. We picture ourselves finding love again. Maybe someone to hold our hand during those long, lonely nights. Someone to share our stories and our laughter. And yes, that sounds beautiful, doesn't it? The idea of finding someone who will be there for us, who will provide the companionship and affection we crave. But what we often overlook are the emotional and psychological realities of remarriage. The reality that the past doesn't just vanish. You see, when we enter a second marriage later in life, we're not starting with a clean slate. We're carrying a lot with us. Memories of past loves, the echoes of old arguments, the weight of personal histories that shaped who we are today. And those things don't just disappear when you say, "I do" again. They surface in subtle ways, affecting the new relationship. One of the hardest truths I've seen, especially among older adults, is that remarriage can sometimes be more about trying to fill a void than truly embracing a new beginning. After the loss of a spouse or the end of a long marriage, loneliness is a real and often overwhelming feeling. But loneliness is tricky. It doesn't always mean we need someone else. Sometimes it means we need to be at peace with ourselves first. Unfortunately, many people look for a new partner to fix this, and they end up feeling more alone than before. They enter a marriage with expectations that are impossible to meet, looking for something that no one else can provide, a way to bring back what was lost. And then there's the emotional baggage. We all bring our pasts with us, even if we try to leave them behind. The way we react to conflict, the way we deal with loss, the way we handle intimacy, it's all shaped by our previous experiences. In a new marriage, these old wounds can surface in ways we didn't expect. Maybe we're more sensitive to criticism, or maybe we expect our new partner to act a certain way because we're used to how our former spouse treated us. These expectations can lead to disappointment and frustration, and ultimately, they can strain the new relationship. But here's the thing. Remarriage isn't the quick fix we think it is. In fact, it can sometimes make things more complicated. It's easy to think that a new partner will bring excitement, fresh energy, and happiness, but the reality is that marriage, at any age, requires work. Hard, emotional work. And when you've already lived a full life, with all the lessons and scars that come with it, that work can feel like a weight you weren't ready to bear. So, before you decide to remarry, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I ready for the emotional work that comes with blending my life with someone else's, especially when I'm carrying all these old memories and experiences? Am I ready to face the truth that love is never as simple as it seems, especially when we're older? Remarriage can be a beautiful, fulfilling experience, but only if you're fully aware of the emotional complexities involved. If you don't know this truth, that entering a second marriage isn't just about finding love again, but about embracing the full reality of what it means to share your life with another person after years of living independently, you might be setting yourself up for disappointment, and that's something worth considering before you make that leap. Chapter 3. The Changing Nature of Love. In the later years. When we're younger, love often comes with an intensity that's all-encompassing. It's full of passion, excitement, and the kind of thrilling chemistry that makes our hearts race and our minds dizzy. But as we age, we start to understand something deeper about love. The physical attraction fades, and the rush of infatuation doesn't carry the same weight it once did. And you know what? That's okay. In fact, it's actually a beautiful thing. Because here's the truth. Love in our later years isn't about what we see on the surface. It's about what we feel deep within. It's about shared experiences, mutual respect, and emotional connection rather than physical attraction. And when you reach this stage in life, this kind of love becomes more profound, more genuine, and frankly, more fulfilling. You realize that love isn't about chasing that fleeting spark anymore. It's about a bond built on trust, shared history, and understanding. Let me share something with you. I've seen older couples who may not have the same kind of physical chemistry as they did when they were younger, but the way they look at each other, the way they laugh together, the way they communicate, it's clear that their love has only deepened with time. It's not the fiery passion of youth, but it's something more stable, more enduring, and far more meaningful. That's the kind of love you'll be able to appreciate in your later years, the love that grows from companionship, shared memories, and the kind of emotional intimacy that you can't force or fake. But here's something many don't consider when thinking about remarriage in later life. You need to recognize that the kind of love you seek is different now. It's not about impressing someone with grand gestures or living up to the expectations of romance. It's about finding someone who resonates with you at the soul level. You want a companion to walk beside you, not someone to chase after like a dream. You need someone who understands the value of simple moments, of quiet companionship, of holding hands in silence and finding comfort in each other's presence. And let's talk about emotional intimacy for a second. As we get older, we become more comfortable in our own skin. The insecurities that plagued us when we were younger, the need to constantly impress, the fear of being vulnerable, they start to fade. And what takes their place is a kind of emotional clarity. In later years, we want a relationship where we can just be, without masks, without pretense. This is the kind of love that matters most as we age. So, before you decide to remarry, ask yourself, what do I really want from a relationship now? If it's romance and excitement, then perhaps a second marriage might not offer that the way a first one might have. But if it's peace, mutual respect, and a shared journey, then yes, love in your later years can be incredibly fulfilling, even without the fire of youth. Chapter 4. The Social Pressure and Expectations of Marriage. Let's talk about something that's not often discussed openly: the societal pressures that surround remarriage, especially when you're older. There's this unspoken expectation that if you're older and single, there must be something wrong with you, right? Society has this idea that you're either supposed to find someone again or be viewed as some kind of failure because you didn't. It's almost like you're expected to prove that you're still desirable, still worthy of love, and still capable of having a successful relationship. But here's where things get tricky. These societal expectations are based on outdated ideas. We're taught to believe that life is a linear journey. First love, marriage, family, and then if things don't work out, you need to remarry to show that you're not giving up. But the truth is, your life is not a checklist. There's no rule that says you have to remarry once you're older, or that being single means you've failed. The pressure to live up to these standards can create unnecessary stress and influence decisions that aren't right for you. I've known people who felt pushed by their families or communities to get remarried because they feared being judged as lonely or incomplete. The thing is, loneliness is not an automatic result of being single. It's often the result of not knowing how to fill your own life with meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. Many older individuals find that when they stop seeking a partner to fix their loneliness, they start to discover all the incredible things they can do on their own. They travel, they take up hobbies, they reconnect with old friends, and they grow in ways they never could when they were constantly in a relationship. There's also the expectation that remarriage is a natural progression in life, something you should do once you've lost a spouse or partner. This is especially true if your previous marriage was long or filled with children. The idea of replacing that person with someone new can be tempting, but I urge you to pause and think, am I making this decision because I truly want to, or because I feel like I'm supposed to? We live in a world that constantly tells us what we should and shouldn't do. But when it comes to something as personal as remarriage in later years, it's vital that you tune out the external noise and focus on what you truly want. Don't let society's expectations push you into something that doesn't feel right for you. Just because others may expect you to remarry doesn't mean that's what will bring you the peace and joy you deserve. The reality is, there is no shame in choosing to remain single in your later years. And more importantly, there's no shame in choosing to remarry, but only if it's truly what you want, not because of societal expectations or pressure. So before you make the decision to remarry, ask yourself, am I doing this for me or for everyone else? Chapter 5. Financial and Practical Considerations. Now, let's talk about the real, down-to-earth stuff, the financial and practical aspects of remarriage, something many people overlook when thinking about the possibility of a second marriage later in life. While the emotional side of remarriage often gets all the attention, it's the practical details that can make or break the success of a relationship, especially when you're older. Here's the truth. At an older age, your financial and living arrangements are more complex than they were when you were younger. If you're thinking about remarriage, you need to consider how it will impact your finances, your living situation, your retirement plans, and even your estate. These aren't things you can brush aside thinking they'll work themselves out later. No, these are crucial aspects that require careful thought and open communication. Take finances, for instance. After years of working, saving, and planning for retirement, you've built up your nest egg. You've carefully invested, put money away, and maybe even planned for a specific way of living in your later years. But remarriage? Well, that could complicate things. Combining assets and debts in a new marriage means that you might have to rethink your financial strategy. If you've been living independently, you may have been able to spend or save according to your own preferences. Now, you'll have to navigate these decisions with another person. It's important to ask, how will my financial situation change if I remarry? Will I still have the same financial freedom, or will my partner's financial situation affect my stability? And let's not forget about the emotional weight of discussing finances. For many older couples, having open and honest conversations about money is crucial. If either of you has debts, mortgages, or complicated financial histories, these things need to be discussed up front. If you've never had to combine finances before, it can feel overwhelming. But these conversations are necessary, especially in your later years when financial stability is so important. Getting remarried isn't just about the emotional bond, it's about being practical too. Then there's the living situation. When you've spent years building a home, a life, and routines that work for you, sharing that space with someone new can be challenging. You've established your own way of doing things, from the way you decorate to how you organize your daily activities. Introducing a new partner into your space means making compromises. The same goes for planning your future home or lifestyle. Will you be moving into one person's house, or will you sell both homes and find a new place to start fresh? These are big decisions that require thought and planning. And of course, let's not overlook healthcare and caregiving. In older age, we all face the reality that our health may decline or that we might need extra support at some point. A second marriage means having to navigate these potential issues with a partner. You might have to make caregiving plans, discuss how to handle medical expenses, and decide who will be responsible for what. Again, these things require honest conversations well before the decision to marry. The last thing you want is to face a medical crisis without being on the same page as your partner. The takeaway here is this: before you remarry, make sure you understand how it will affect your finances, your living arrangements, and your overall well-being. Financial independence is a precious thing in later life, and remarriage should never compromise that unless it's truly in line with your goals. Be sure to communicate clearly with your potential partner about these practical matters, and don't shy away from the tough discussions. If you approach these decisions thoughtfully, you'll be in a much stronger position, emotionally and practically, in your relationship. Chapter 6. Embracing the Future. Without remarriage. I want you to pause and think about something for a moment. Imagine, just for a second, that you never remarry. I know that sounds drastic to some of you, and you might immediately think, but I don't want to be alone in my old age. And I get it. No one wants to be alone. We all desire connection, and companionship is a beautiful thing. But here's the truth. You don't have to marry to find fulfillment in life. In fact, embracing the possibility of not remarrying can be one of the most liberating things you can do in your later years. It's a chance to create a life that is entirely your own, on your terms. It's about embracing the freedom and independence that comes with knowing you don't need another person to complete you. Instead, you can pour your energy into things that truly bring you joy and purpose. So what does that look like? Well, maybe it means pursuing hobbies or passions that you never had time for when you were younger. Perhaps it means traveling the world, exploring places you've always wanted to see but never had the opportunity to visit. Or maybe it means cultivating deeper friendships with the people around you, investing time in the relationships that don't require romantic involvement to thrive. But the key here is self-fulfillment. Life, especially in your later years, is about realizing that your happiness doesn't hinge on whether you have a partner or not. It's about living fully, experiencing the richness of life, and finding joy in the simple things. Whether that's through creative pursuits, spending time with loved ones, or simply enjoying a peaceful moment by yourself, the truth is, you have the power to shape your life however you choose. And that includes the decision of whether or not to remarry. If you choose not to remarry, there's no shame in that. In fact, there's great power in owning your life, in embracing who you are, and in carving out a future that's uniquely yours. You can live a full, meaningful life without needing to be in a romantic relationship. You can experience deep connection, joy, and love in many forms, not just through marriage. What you have now at this stage in life is a chance to embrace all the things that matter most: peace, purpose, and the joy that comes from being content with who you are. There's no need to follow society's blueprint for what your later years should look like. You get to decide, and you have every right to create a life that feels fulfilling without feeling the pressure to remarry. So, before you jump into a second marriage, ask yourself, am I afraid of being alone, or am I truly ready to share my life with someone else? If the answer is that you're ready to share your life, that's wonderful. But if the answer is that you fear solitude, remember, solitude is not the enemy. It's in that space where you can find your truest self. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover a kind of happiness that no relationship could ever bring. Conclusion. A heartfelt goodbye. As we wrap up this conversation, I want you to think about everything we've discussed. The decisions we make when we're older, especially about relationships and remarriage, carry a lot of weight. But they also hold the potential for deep reflection and personal growth. Life in your later years isn't something to be feared or rushed through. It's a time to be embraced, to reconnect with yourself, and to decide what truly brings you peace and happiness. I've shared with you the truths that many don't often talk about, that remarriage in later life is not just about love, but about understanding yourself, your emotional needs, and your practical circumstances. It's about knowing that true companionship can be found in many forms, not just through romantic relationships. It's about embracing your independence, your wisdom, and the beautiful freedom that comes with it. Remember, remarriage is not a requirement for happiness or fulfillment. In fact, the happiest and most content people I know are those who've found peace within themselves, who've embraced the richness of life through friendships, hobbies, travel, and their own inner journeys. They've created lives filled with purpose and joy, with or without a romantic partner. So, as you think about your own future, take a moment to ask yourself, what do I really want from life? What kind of relationships am I looking for? If you're considering remarriage, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, not out of fear or loneliness. And if you're thinking about remaining single, don't ever let society or anyone else make you feel incomplete. You are enough, just as you are. You have the power to choose your path. And no matter where that path leads, whether it's with a partner or on your own, it can be full of love, joy, and fulfillment. You deserve a life that is authentic to who you are, and the wisdom that comes with age, is your greatest tool to make that happen. So, my friend, as you continue to walk your journey, I want you to carry this thought with you. The best love story of your life is the one you write for yourself. Whether you choose to remarry or not, the most important relationship you will ever have is with yourself. And when you are at peace with who you are, everything else will fall into place. Thank you for listening, and I hope this message has given you something to reflect on. Take care, and remember, you are enough, just as you are.